About a year ago, we were talking to Eric Marks from the landing at that point and had set him up to come and speak to our club. And then I got a call saying that he really did not feel comfortable leaving Seattle or coming. He was coming over regularly at that time, and he had to curtail those trips for the big C word. Anyways, I'm so thrilled. Rebecca recommended that we get Sam Grello to come and speak with us. He is the general manager for the new Port Angeles Wharf, um, in past the landing, and is in charge of its development. And actually, Laurel told me some description of it, the pink monstrosity or something like that. But anyways, we're moving on to a new age. And Sam and his wife moved to Port Angeles from Bellingham 2 years ago, and they love it here. He opened the arcade down on the wharf and now also runs one of a kind art gallery. So happy to have you here this morning. Sam, you can take it away.
All right. I've got a brief PowerPoint presentation that I'll give you guys. It'll last about 10, 15 minutes. And then I figure kind of questions and discussion are the most interesting thing that has to do with the landing, in my opinion. And so I'll make sure to leave some time for that. And please raise a hand if you want to chime in anytime when I'm talking. So let's see here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go briefly into just the history of the landing really quickly because it informs a lot of where we are today and where we're going. The landing was developed in the late 80s, and these are some of the original plans for it. It was planned and developed to be a hotel with a couple of condos that was going to be sitting on the water. So that's what was built. All the permissions were given, but as it happens, sometimes some paper pusher somewhere realized they had given permission they were not allowed to give. So after all of the hotel rooms on the third floor had been installed and on the second floor they were getting installed, DNR came in and said, hey, sorry, you're actually not allowed to have residences like hotel rooms on a harbor in Washington State. Tear it all out. So it went up to the Seventh Court Circuit of Appeals, right below the U.S. Supreme Court, and the developers lost. So they went bankrupt. The property then reverted to the Port of Port Angeles for ownership, and they held on to it for about 20 years. And they did a good job with what they were kind of given and what the port's mission is, but they weren't really the right entity to be running a mixed-use commercial space. And so they sold it around the last real estate crisis in 2007 to Paul Kronhauer. He tried a couple of things with the property and then he passed away unexpectedly. Then Paul's wife, Sarah, tried to sell the property. It took a couple of years, and then Eric Marks found it and he bought it. And so that's where we are today. He saw a lot of potential with this property. He recognized that it's always kind of been underutilized and misused. And it's right in the middle of Port Angeles waterfront. It's, tucked between the city pier and the ferry. So it should be more of a shining star and less of a smelly turd. And that was kind of what his philosophy was when he got the place. And, he believes strongly, and so do I, that we can kind of transform this place. And so the idea, he spent a lot of time on the East Coast, as have I, is to try to replicate a bit of a Jersey Shore boardwalk experience as kind of a place for entertainment, where tourists will mill about, take pictures, engage in the waterfront, and locals will also come down and eat, engage in the space. So that's what we're shooting for, is a mixture of both local use and tourist use. So yeah, this is a nice shot of the building. This is what the landing looked like when Eric bought it. So I always like to refer to this as the big top circus tent. It was just a very ugly color, salmon pink, I think is what it was called. The photo on the right, you can kind of see it was confusing, and it still is a little bit for people driving into our parking space at the first time. Where do you go? What do you do? Are you allowed to be here? Is this a government building? It's just not a very friendly, conducive space for pedestrians or people yet. Um, so there was about 20 years of deferred maintenance at the landing when Eric bought it. I came on about a year and a half ago. And I have a background in commercial property management in New York City. And so some of this stuff really struck out to me as things we needed to do immediately, just make space a little more inviting. So these are the garage doors. You know, the photo on the left doesn't even look like it's an open building. On the second floor, we painted it. We got rid of the dated colors. We changed how art is displayed. Our pier stub, it used to be just holding garbage. We would have homeless people sleeping in between the garbage at nighttime. It's been removed. We've stabilized the pier as well. It wasn't super stable before, and now it's perfectly safe to go out onto. We have picnic tables. We've constantly are finding tourists using them. So we're just noticing that if you put the architecture out there for people to engage in the site, they will, and the kind of people that you want to engage the site. And so we're finding a real change in the usage on our property, which is great. I see Chris raised a hand. You got a question, Chris?
Yeah, is there any way that you can get rid of that give subtitles a try on your screen there?
Oh,
Because that's kind of, there
is it
you
gone?
go. Yeah.
There we go. All right, sweet.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for letting me know. Yeah, so then inside, before we put the arcade in, there was the large empty space that, once upon a time, there were like newspaper shops in. It had become a homeless hangout spot. So we closed the space off and we created a dedicated usage for it, which was an arcade. When we were allowed by the government to run the arcade, it was very popular. And it will open again once we're allowed to do so, basically. So let's see. And then the back hallway on the first floor was also a bit of a no man's land. There were gates up. There was the original carpet from the 80s. Unoccupied space as well. So we were able to occupy the space cheaply and put tenants in that aren't paying us a lot in rent, but they are contributing to the atmosphere and the users that are bringing people into the building. And so then about at the beginning of this year, before COVID hit, we were able to kind of move from deferred maintenance. There's still some things that we're touching onto improving the property. And so one of the big projects we undertook this year was fixing up the Port Angeles Visitor Center. The old wooden planters were falling apart. We got Peninsula Masonry Restoration, who's a great guy, to come out and build some new brick planters that are irrigated and lit. The mortar for the entire building has been touched and fixed. This building is so old that the mortar doesn't even contain Portland cement in it. So there were some areas that were structurally starting to get unsound. And so now the building will last for another 100 years untouched, which is great. We also removed the downriggers deck this year, which downriggers was able to use once or twice a year just due to wind. The deck was in disrepair and it was getting to the point where in the next year or two, it could potentially fall into the water. So the building looks much better from the water now. You know, the deck was something that the port added onto the building, so it is not part of the original architectural plans. The views inside of downriggers are much better now. You don't have to kind of look at the water through a deck that's in disrepair. Yeah, and Jen spent a lot of money and time upgrading downriggers when they were closed. They completely redid their kitchen. Downriggers has always been a big restaurant, so it's the only restaurant that I've eaten in since COVID began because you're able to just really be far apart from folks. We also, the kind of the big things we did is we painted the building, and then we also changed the name. So it's no longer the Landing. It is referred to now as Port Angeles Wharf or the Wharf. We did this for a couple of reasons. What's a landing? You know, is it a landing strip at an airport? It made more sense when it was the Lincoln Street Landing, but the Landing just as a commercial destination, it just didn't make so much sense. So even though we're not technically a wharf, Port Angeles Wharf does a couple of things. There's the name Wharf, so you know that you're on the water, you know that you're going to be able to engage with the water, which you're able to do on our site. And then it's got the name Port Angeles in it, so you know where you are. The nice thing about this sign is when you're like pulling into town on, say, the straight shot or you know, a bus, like you see this immediately. If you go on Instagram or Google search images and you Google Port Angeles, these images are starting to pop up a lot. We're anticipating that like this sign will sort of replace the Port Angeles Inn sign as the iconic sign of town. And we are noticing a lot of people from Instagram just taking pictures pretty frequently. We removed the totem poles that caused some controversy. So those are gone now. If anybody's looking to buy a totem pole for cheap, contact me. We replaced them with two of the Coho's old 3-propeller blades. Those are the propellers that were sitting kind of in their front parking lot forever. So we've got two of them up. And yeah, that's a lot of the stuff that we've done this year. So next year, we're planning to start to work on our eastern block of the building. So this is where the old wine bar space was, where the Port of Angels Jewelry Shop is, and the Olympic Coast Discovery Center. So this is on our upper parking level. We're looking to redo the entire facade, brand new glass. There's going to be a glass roof that will come out about 12 feet. So there will be exterior seating that will be allowed. It will be a good wind break as well. We've done some engineering with the wind to see how we can break up the wind because you do get pretty strong wind up here sometimes. There will be propane fire pits as well for people to hang out and warm themselves. So this is an original kind of design of what we're planning to do with the upper parking level. Ignore the south end here where we've got you know, these little planters. Those will not happen. When I saw this, I nixed it immediately because these are great little homeless sleeping corridors in here. So this is going to become, we're planning on putting like a gazebo up here. There might be like some sort of architectural fancy, so something for tourists to take pictures in front of. So it could be like a log cabin or something that's going to engage with the timber history of the site. Not sure what it is yet. If you have any great ideas, I'd love to hear them. On the north end of the site, we're going to have some turf there that's unprogrammed so kids can play. These two little pyramids here are sitting decks. So you can look out at Victoria or over at the Hurricane Ridge. It's over here. We're planning to remove the southern ramp. It will be gone completely. We're going to replace it with some stairs and a slide, just as kind of a fun element for the site. So the ramp that you use to park up on the top level right now will remain. This will be able to be used for deliveries to restaurants on the second floor, as well as dropping off event equipment. We're planning to have this be an event space, so it will be wired for concerts. You know, if you want to give a speech or anything like that, that will be available to people. We're the big concern that we'll kind of hear from people is like, but what about parking for downriggers? What What about parking? Is kind of the big refrain when we talk about this. You'll notice right below, this is the chamber building right here. This is currently landscaping. It's going to be converted into parking. So we're actually only going to lose about 10 parking spots up on the top between this parking here, and then we're re-engineering these spots. So we're going to be able to grab a couple more. So that's kind of what the plan is there. And then a little bit, we'll be getting started on this next year, but this will be finished in 2022. It's a little tough right now with timelines just because of where the world is right now. And then a little bit further out, we're going to be removing the dock building. I've looked for users. There's just nobody that really wants the space. The causeway that goes out to it needs to be repaired. If you want to be able to drive out, the repair cost is $600,000. The cost to remove it is $600,000. So, you know, it's an unfortunate little bit of history that's probably going to be removed in the next couple of years, unless another kind of usage can be found for it. So here's where our current tenants are. We've got two different restaurants. We have Downriggers and Smuggler's Landing. For retail, we've got 3 different art galleries, one-of-a-kind art gallery, Artifactory, which used to be, shoot, what was their name? They're right next to one-of-a-kind art gallery. And then there's the Todd Fisher Gallery. We've got a really great jewelry shop, music lessons shop, the arcade, which is closed right now. And then for office space, we've got Clown Co-working remote offices, which has been really nice if you need to basically rent a private office space right now. They're great. Washington State Attorney General's office, they're with us. NOAA is with us. Catholic Community Caregivers, they're training people to caregive right now. And then we've got a couple of smaller offices, United Engineering, they're a civil engineer that just started up in town, and then Travis Bergwind, who's a financial advisor. And so those who our current tenants are. We've been lucky in that we haven't lost any tenants during COVID. And that is because we've been flexible. This is a once in a lifetime, once in a generation pandemic. It's the sort of thing that doesn't happen often. So how you act in a position of, you know, power is going to be remembered for the rest of your life. And so, you know, we take that to heart, and we've worked with all of our tenants to make sure that they are not leaving because of an inability to pay their rent. So one-of-a-kind art gallery has, at the beginning of this pandemic, when they obviously had to shut down, they took to paying rent through painting murals, like through art. So our property now has a bunch more art. It's been enlivened. It looks a lot better. And, you know, we're working on a lot of situations like that where, you know, we want to keep the lights on. We want, you know, this is a temporary situation. This is not forever. And so, you know, when there's a vaccine, when things return to a normal, a more normal than what we have right now, we want to be positioned in a place to just kind of get going. And so that's what we've been finding has been working for people. That being said, and you know, with this philosophy, we just signed 2 new tenants, which is really exciting. So I can't give any spoilers yet, but the old wine bar space is about to get reoccupied, and they're looking to open in February. And it'll be a similar experience, but it won't be a wine bar. So that's really exciting. And then the Whale Watchers gift shop. We've got Island Adventures Whale Watching Company in our building. They had to give up their gift shop, which is right on the corner of our building. It's one of our best units. It looks out over the Coho. It's one of our units is actually on pilings over the water. And because Island Adventures, you know, they've been working with Canadian whale watching companies. They're the only American one this far west. The water border has been hard closed this entire year. And so Island Adventures has sort of been on their own. in terms of trying to find whales this far out in the strait. That's messed up their business model where they had guaranteed whale watching tours. So they are planning to come back next year, but they're just going to be using our dock. And so they're not going to have a gift shop, which is fine. And, as a building manager, I like that because that back end of the building, one of our nicest units was closed for 8 months out of the year. We just signed a new coffee shop / bakery to go into that space. And so we're hoping to replicate kind of like in Port Townsend, the coffee shop Better Living Through Coffee, which is right next to the Port Townsend ferry and is always slammed with people, is having a waterfront coffee shop where people can watch ferry traffic, and the ferry will be starting again. And so that's sort of where we're going with that. And so it's exciting to be able to, in the midst of this pandemic, be starting 2 new businesses. And we're not starting the businesses, but we are helping these people who are first-time entrepreneurs launch a business. So that's exciting. And that being said, we're always looking for other people who have interesting or dynamic ideas. We're looking for ways to use the property to engage with the community and to engage with the tourist populations. So if you've got an idea, but maybe you don't have money or you don't know how to do it, please come to us because we're looking for new ideas and new things to do constantly. Got to stay busy right now. And so with that, I'm going to open it up to questions, and you can kind of give me your what you think we've been doing. Tell me complaints. My feelings don't hurt easy.
Sam, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
Now, you said when the original build was there, it's supposed to be a hotel, and DNR came in and said they can't put it over the water.
Yeah.
How does someplace like the Silverwood in Tacoma, that is over Silver Cloud in Tacoma, put a hotel all the way out over the water on a channel?
Yeah.
That to me, that if DNR is accepting this there, it is a waterway, but we are a closed waterway also, being Port Angeles Harbor. What was their reasoning again?
So it's in the Constitution for the state of Washington that harborways cannot, like a harbor cannot have a residency in it. And that was put into the Constitution. It was an amendment. The longshoremen back in the day were like, hey, like these harbors, these 13 harbors in Washington state, like they are the economic lifeblood of this state. We can't have rich people putting their homes in the harbors where it's also nice to live. Like we want that to be for working. And so that was how that got put into the Constitution. There are 3 or 4 hotels in the state that are on the water that are in harborways that just got in. Some of them
This was just recently that Silver Cloud was able to do this. I want to think it was even after the landing was started. So
I'm not sure, it might have been some envelopes with cash. But there are, I
that
know
doesn't happen.
yeah. of course not. But yeah, I know Eric has looked at that a couple of times just because it would be nice to have a unit or 2 in the building. But yeah, it's not really an avenue that we're going down anymore. And Eric's a Harvard educated lawyer. So he's looked for the loopholes and he hasn't found any for us.
Yeah, and I just thought it was worth maybe mentioning in case it was worth fighting for. So
yeah.
Oh well.
Hey Sam, great presentation. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks.
How are you marketing? When you want creative investors to come in with new ideas, and what are you doing to market?
A couple of different things. So it's a lot of networking right now. Something that I found, I'm not from Port Angeles, right? I'm from California, but I've lived in a lot of places since then. And the reason my wife and I picked Port Angeles, we were kind of driving all around the country. It's a small community. And there are so many sole proprietors here. There are so many cashiers that are also the business owner. and coming from big city, both of us, very charming. That's very, very charming. And it's like, oh, I can start a business, like, and if I see a need here in the community, I can just kind of jump into it and get the business started. And that's true of Port Angeles. What I discovered is the flip side to that is that you've got businesses where the owners are the cashiers. So it's difficult to find, the labor pool here is not super, particularly for the lower paying jobs. And so it is hard to find people who are willing to kind of to take that, that jump into being an entrepreneur, into being a business owner. So we have tried for the beginning of the year, we were trying to bring people into Port Angeles from out of town. That's how the arcade was for about a year and a half before I joined the project about 2 years ago. Eric was trying everywhere to find somebody to open an arcade. There was an article in the PDN about it. He was reaching out to arcade owners on the I-5 corridor. Nobody wanted to come to Port Angeles. They're just like, nope, that's too far out. Like, I don't know the people there. It's just too much. And so then I was hired. So basically we've developed this philosophy of you kind of got to do it yourself. So that's why we started the arcade ourselves. And, now we had to take over a gallery to keep it open. So there are bandwidth issues that we run into, but I have found that there are a lot of people in Port Angeles that have the spirit but are underdeveloped. And so they haven't had the opportunity to just kind of learn how to run a business. And so we are finding more luck with finding that person and developing them and helping them kind of be brought up to be a business owner, because those people are working really hard, and it's something that where like they want it to succeed. And so that's like right now in a pandemic, like that's how we're kind of doing it. It's like I've been working like our coffee shop bakery. I've been developing that for about 8 months now. And we were just kind of able to make it work. And so that's sort of where we're going. Luckily, we're just about fully leased. So right now, like the kind of entrepreneurs I'm looking for people that can do events and stuff. Like we're going to run a maker's fair underneath our garage in December. And, we're able to, like, we're talking with the governor's office. We're pretty sure that retail events of up to 600 people are going to be allowed by December 5th and 6th. But so it's, so we're just kind of putting the call out there, like, come to us with your idea and we'll see if we can help develop it or if we can help make it work. But that's sort of like where we're at right now is in advertising for people. It's not easy. It's not easy.
So Sam, are you working in terms of a holistic vision with the Field Arts and Events Center and some of the other entities that are, really gaining some force, even though there's a temporary hold there, but for the total vision for Port Angeles and Clallam County?
Yes, we definitely are. My wife actually works over at the Waterfront Center. So there is this group through the chamber. It's called the Port Angeles Renaissance or the Renaissance Committee. I probably should know what its name is. But basically it's all of the business owners and interested parties for Railroad Avenue. And we all get together every couple of months and we just sort of discuss where we're at with the projects, where we're planning to go. If there's any way that, we can help each other out, because we very much, especially on Railroad Avenue, there's this idea that, the rising tide raises all boats in the harbor, right? And so we're all kind of together on the street. And so, we've been in communication with the Lower Elwha on their hotel, and with Johanna Barty and the Harbor Town Mall and Danya Allward and the Red Lion. And so we're all trying to kind of come up with some things on how to make Railroad Avenue better. And then also the Chamber of Commerce is engaging right now in a 5-year strategic plan for downtown. It's called, I think, Elevate Port Angeles 2026. And so just last night, we had a meeting with Brian Smith, the PAPD chief, and we were discussing safety and perceptions of safety in downtown. And that's one of the big hurdles that we have. And it's the perception of safety. It's not safety. It's very safe downtown, but it's the perception of safety that's crap right now, honestly. And so we're talking about different ways where we can make it better. And, and we are getting a holistic approach there. We had PBH on the call. We had Allison Brecky with the town. So everybody's kind of aware of this issue, and it's something that, like Port Angeles is dealing with, and Port Townsend is not as much, right? It's not as visible. And so like we want, like on the Yelp review of Port Angeles, for people not to say like, I don't feel safe downtown. And so that's one of the big things that we're getting started on this year, and hoping in the next year or two, we'll be able to kind of deal with somehow. It's a hard problem to deal with, but yeah. Any other questions?
No other questions? Okay. Well, Sam, thank you very much for your time this morning. We appreciate you joining us and giving us a really intriguing view of what's going on with the Port Angeles Wharf.
Cool.
So good luck to you, and hopefully you'll get more tenants in there, and everything will go by. In fact, it looks like a good place to put on a concert, don't you think, Mr. Zenovic?
That's right.
I mean, that's really some discussion we ought to have. That'd be a really nice spot. I mean,
Yeah, I would think, jamming in the park might work there.
Maybe by Labor Day next year, Sean, or Sam, go for it. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking to the Wanda Fuca Foundation about that. So yeah.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
You'll gain income. You'll gain income somehow.
Yeah. Sweet.
Wonderful.
All right.
I love how it's coming together.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other further questions, any other announcements anybody forgot about that wants to throw in there right away? Okay, we're right at 8 o'clock, and thank everybody for being here. Norm, did you say you want